The fate of Colombia's only Amazon port in Leticia is hanging by a thread as the Amazon River steadily dries up and shifts its course, a situation that is not only threatening the town's livelihood, but also igniting fresh tensions with neighboring Peru. But here's where it gets controversial. The changing river is reshaping borders and challenging long-standing treaties, complicating relationships in this vibrant border region. Leticia, nestled deep in the jungle, serves as Colombia's sole gateway to the Amazon River. This bustling town of 55,000 residents depends heavily on river access for supplies and daily commerce. Yet, due to drought, increasing sediment buildup, and the river's natural tendency to meander, the Amazon is edging further south into Peru, leaving Leticia alarmingly close to becoming landlocked within just 5 years, according to a Colombian Navy study. This looming reality has residents and experts sounding alarms. Although Leticia boasts an airport, it lacks highways to connect it overland to the rest of Colombia. As a result, the town relies almost entirely on boats coming up the Amazon from Peru and Brazil to deliver essential goods like food and medicine. This vulnerability underscores how critical the river is, a point reinforced by Santiago Duque, a biology professor at Colombia's National University branch in Leticia. He emphasizes that daily trade across the tri-border region is a lifeline, illustrating how intertwined the communities here are with the majestic but unpredictable river. Known locally as the Triple Frontier, Leticia lies where Colombia, Peru, and Brazil converge along the Amazon. The Brazilian town of Tabatinga sits just next door, and the area hums with activity as people from all 3 countries, speaking Spanish, Portuguese, and even English, cross borders with ease. In fact, there's a popular saying, you can have breakfast in Colombia, lunch in Peru, and dinner in Brazil. It's a unique cultural mosaic woven together by the river's embrace. Yet, the camaraderie is starting to fray. With the Amazon's waters receding, Leticia's cargo docks have been repeatedly extended to reach the river. But during the dry season, the docks sit on barren, muddy land, rendering machinery like forklifts useless. This forces workers to unload goods manually, hauling heavy crates hundreds of yards through mud, which substantially slows commerce and boosts costs. Sigifredo Beltran, a local entrepreneur and hotel owner, laments this regression, saying, "It feels like we're back in the 18th century." For years, Colombian authorities largely overlooked these problems, but tensions escalated sharply this past July due to a dispute over Santa Rosa, a small but strategically significant island in the Amazon. The island lies just a few hundred yards from Leticia and is inhabited by about 3,000 Peruvians, yet Colombia also claims ownership. The border between Colombia and Peru was officially established in a treaty signed in 1922, but Santa Rosa, formed decades later in 1974, was never formally assigned to either country. The situation became more heated when Peru's Congress elevated Santa Rosa's administrative status from village to town, increasing its governmental presence there. Colombia's president Gustavo Petro visited Leticia to voice a strong protest, declaring emphatically, Colombia does not recognize Peruvian sovereignty over Santa Rosa. Fueling the nationalist flames, Colombian presidential candidate Daniel Quintero caused a stir by secretly visiting Santa Rosa and planting a Colombian flag, boldly declaring the island Colombian territory. The act was quickly countered by Peruvian authorities, who removed the flag within 15 minutes. This dramatic move highlights how politicians often exploit territorial disputes, knowing how sensitive such issues are to the Colombian public. Historical wounds remain, like the 1903 loss of Panama, which was once a Colombian province, after the U.S. engineered its independence to facilitate building the Panama Canal. Border disagreements have long marked Peru-Colombia relations. Leticia itself was originally established by the Peruvian military in the 1800s and named after the girlfriend of one of its founders, before becoming Colombian territory, a change that sparked protests and a brief conflict in 1932. Legal experts argue that both nations have valid claims over Santa Rosa, making the dispute especially thorny. The 1922 treaty sets the boundary along the Amazon's deepest channel. When Santa Rosa formed, this deepest channel passed north of the island, placing it within Peru. However, since the river has altered its course over time, the deepest channel now runs south of Santa Rosa, backing Colombia's claim, explains Walter Arevalo, an international law professor at Rosario University in Bogota. This shifting river border complicates sovereignty and ownership, a scenario far from unique. For example, Belgium and the Netherlands regularly negotiate borders affected by the Meuse River's changing flow. Arevalo suggests that Colombia and Peru would benefit by jointly managing the river to maximize usage and minimize conflict, rather than letting natural shifts fuel discord. In the 1980s, the countries created a bilateral border commission, which had become inactive until recently. Amid renewed tensions, the commission has slated important meetings in Lima for September 11th and 12th. To revisit and hopefully resolve these boundary concerns. Colombia might have mitigated Leticia's isolation by dredging the smaller Amazon branch that now flows by the town, but this costly measure has not been pursued, partly because political attention in Bogotá tends to be minimal for this remote, sparsely populated region, notes Professor Duque. On Santa Rosa, the Peruvian flag flies prominently, and the community identifies proudly as Peruvian, but maintains close, amicable ties with Leticia. Ivan Llobera, who manages a local hotel, points out that island residents routinely cross over to Leticia for schooling, shopping, and healthcare. Flor Gomez, a fisherwoman on the island, echoes this sentiment, saying, "We are like brothers," highlighting the human face behind geopolitical tension. Max Ortiz, the acting mayor of Santa Rosa, predicts that disputes over borders will continue as long as the Amazon's course keeps changing, and he wryly calls this ongoing uncertainty Mother Nature's doing. This situation raises important questions. Should Colombia focus on costly infrastructure projects like dredging to maintain its Amazon access? Or is it time for both countries to rethink border agreements in light of a shifting natural environment? And how should political leaders balance nationalist rhetoric with the practical need for cooperation? These controversies aren't just legal or environmental. They affect thousands of lives daily. What's your take on resolving such a multifaceted dispute?